So, it didn't take long before disputes began to erupt concerning how the revival of Druidry was going to be handled. By 1781, an organization branched off from the original Mother Grove and established itself independently under Archdruid Henry Hurley. And the group, which is more Masonic, of a variety of Druidry than Tolan's, was originally called the Ancient Order of Druids, or AOD. They were extremely exclusive, which caused the emergences of a significantly less preppy version, I guess, later on in 1883, which was known as the United Ancient Order of Druids, UAOD. And these core groups are referred to as Mesopagan by Druidologists. The Antiquarians were the Antiquarian Druids followed the Mesopagan Druids, and they were influential antiquarians, including Iolo Morganwg, also known as Edward Williams, a Welsh nationalist and translator, Welsh, and William Blake, famous poet. So while Morganwg was being an activist for publicly holding Bardic practices, there was also an integral part of the Wales tradition that was needing to be preserved, or it was going to be lost. And so that was the purpose, really, of his efforts and the Barddas. Combined with that, also Blake using colorful prose language to paint his vision of the Druidic picture. They represent the kind of antiquarian Druidism that contemporary Druids have debated and attacked continuously, and yet continue to borrow from. So, you know, they still use it in their traditions, yet attack the validity of the authenticity. Iolo Morganwg is probably the most controversial figure in the history of Druidism, followed probably closely in second by Douglas Monroe in today's Druidic world. And, you know, both represent a flavor of Welsh Druidry that is somewhat different from perhaps the Druidry you find revived in Ireland or other parts of Britain or Wales or even in other parts of Europe. So, Iolo Morganwg was born as Edward Williams, and he worked to develop large public events that would attract media attention to the Druidic and Bardic revival. And he established the Gorsedd Bard Unus Prydain, the Gorsedd, or Assembly of Bards of Britain, in 1792 at the summer solstice. And these annual events have continued to present a modern reconstruction and preservation of the Welsh tradition up into today. It's still an annual tradition in Wales to this day, unbroken since Iolo personally got it mainly started, along with William Blake, all those years ago. So quite a contribution that I've made in the preservation of the Welsh tradition. He accomplished a great deal in demonstrating to Wales the need for reestablishing its roots. And that is not actually what made him controversial, though. The oldest written texts concerning a Druidic lineage and authentic knowledge that do not come from classical Roman or non-Celtic sources are basically works of Iolo Morganwg himself, particularly the Barddas. And aside from the Barddas, The only others that we have to go by are from other antiquarian and Mesopagan sources of revival. Beyond that, we mainly have the Romans, which is, or non-Celtic sources. Although amazing and intriguing, and for students of the Welsh language, it's discredited, the Barddas by contemporaries as a forgery, as well as any of the other works. In some interpretations of Barddas, it alludes to a secret that was once possessed by Taliesin, a 6th century bard. And by the time 6th century, much of Christianity had spread through the Druidic lands, and so Barddas is a very Christianized version of bardcraft, as we would expect to find given that era, and also in other examples like the Colbrin, which are all materials that were kind of done to preserve ancient traditions during the course of a time when they might disappear. So we see an intensive need to revive these traditions or preserve them when those that are emotionally attached to them see changes where they might disappear altogether. For example, the Welsh language. And that was what was able to be preserved by both the Barddas and the National Eisteddfodd. So.